as it indicates with the addition symbol. So if they all said y equals, you can't do these kind of things with functions. If they all say y equals, you don't know which one's which. All right, h of negative 4 divided by f of 1. So h of negative 4, 7 minus 2x. So 7 minus 2 times negative 4. So I have 15 over f of 1, 3 times 1 plus 2. So 15 over 5, which is 3. All right, the next one is a composite function. When you do a composite function, you work from the inside out. So you have f of g of 3 is how you would read that. So you work from the inside out, and you find g of 3 first. What's my g? X squared minus 5. So 3 squared minus 5 is 4. So the value of g of 3 is 4. So it's kind of like it gets replaced now, and we find now f of 4. 3x plus 2. So 3 times 4 plus 2. And I get 14 for my final answer. One answer at the end. So first we find our g of 3. We got 4. And then we find f of 4. And I get 14. Same on the next one. Work from the inside out. So f of negative 1 times negative 1 plus 2 is negative 1. So f of negative 1 is negative 1. And then we find h of negative 1. So 7 minus 2 times negative 1. So 7 plus 2, or 9. And again, if you're doing this in your head, I would at least write this number down, and then that number. Okay, so I can see what you plugged in, so if you miss it, I don't have to take all the credit off there, okay? And then my last composite one has 3 parts to it. Work from the inside out. h of 3 comes first. So h of 3, 7 minus 2 times x. So 7 minus 2 times 3 equals 1. Work out now, so I'll find f of 1. 3x plus 2. So 3 times 1 plus 2 is 5. And then I'll find g of 5. Oops. 5 squared minus 5 equals 20. So again, this is what I meant by plug and chug. It's not difficult, but you got to know the notation and certainly how to plug the number in. Questions? Okay, this part's a little more challenging, but still not doable for you. Okay, we're going to find the inverse of a function. Okay, the inverse function is a set of ordered pairs obtained by exchanging x and y. To find the inverse of an equation, you switch the x and y, you solve it for y, and you write it in inverse notation. Okay? So, when a function is named as f of x or g of x, I chose f this time. If f of x is the function. So if it says f of x equals something, that means that's the function. Then f negative 1x represents the inverse of the function. So when you see that kind of notation, f negative 1x, g negative 1x, whatever letter, it represents that we are talking about an inverse of a function. Okay, so that is inverse notation. Okay? Remember, in bold letters, underline that f of x is the same thing as y. So when I say in my directions up here, to switch the x and y, f of x is y. Okay? So I'm going to start by just replacing that. So replace. If f of x is y, then I'm going to make it say that. Now I'm going to switch my x and y with each other. So now it's going to say x equals y plus 8. So replace your f of x, switch your x and y, and now solve the equation for y. Solve the equation for y. So I'm going to subtract my 8. So I have x minus 8 equals y. And then that's my inverse. So to write my final answer, I'm going to go back and replace my y now with my inverse notation, f negative 1x equals my x minus 8. Now they're not all that simple. So think of it in steps. I'm going to go through another one and repeat the steps. Write your f of x as y. So y equals 4x minus 10. Switch your x and y. Solve it for y. So I'm going to add 10. So I'm going to have x plus 10 equals 4y. And I'm going to divide by 4. And y equals, how do I want you to leave this? I really don't have a preference. I myself would make it 1/4 x plus 5 halves. But honestly, I don't even care if you left it x plus 10. Oops. You can see that. That would be helpful. I would go ahead and do the divide by 4 myself and make it 1/4 x plus 5 halves. However, I wish I knew what the next teacher would expect you to do. If you left it at x plus 10 over 4, I really wouldn't care myself. I'm going to go ahead and simplify it. I'll have to ask her and see what she says. College-wise, what they would want. My guess is they'd want it like I did it and not left as x plus 10 over 4, but I'll find out. So let me reiterate here how I did that. I just took my 1 understood x divided by 4, so 1/4, and then my 10 over 4 is 5 halves. This is my inverse then, so I go back and I replace my y with my inverse notation. Okay, and my last one. Replace f of x with y. And you really don't need to do that step, but I want to make sure you see it. Switch your x and y. Solve for y. Now, I'm going to solve for y here. I'm going to get rid of my fractions first. So I'm going to take everything times 3. It's not the only way to do it, but eventually you got to multiply by 3. So it's been a while since you've done something like this. So 3x equals, my 3's cancel, which is why I did it, 2y plus 21. So my 3's cancel here. Subtract the 21. So I have 3x minus 21 equals 2y. And then divide by 2. And I get 3 over 2, x, and then 21 over 2. So f negative 1, the inverse notation, f negative 1x equals 3 halves x minus 21 halves. Couldn't quite fit it on there. Okay, that's not as easy.